Hey, welcome to the shop. So today I'm doing a long needed update to the fabrication area to be able to work a little more efficiently. Let me show you what I'm doing. My workshop is just in the side of my garage here, so it's pretty space limited. So the welding area has been set up pretty well for a while. Next to that are the stationary tools that I use the most. I have the drill press on the stand that I built, as well as the chop saw on that cart that I built that captures all the chips. But in between those, I've created a spot for two of my most commonly used stationary tools that I kept on a shelf before. That's my belt grinder that I built in a recent video and my portaband table right there. In the past, I've had to get them out to use them. I want to build a table for them to sit on. I'm going to start off with this toolbox topper that I found at the hardware store, and it has just enough room for both tools to be able to sit there on the bench. They'll be packed in really tightly, but I can pull them off of here if I need more room around them for a particular project, so I think it'll work pretty well. I need to go pick up some steel to be able to build the frame around it, and I have a few different steel suppliers that I use for different things, and it's good to know who's in your area depending on what you need. I'm using some 16 gauge, that's right around 1/16 of an inch or 1.5 millimeter thick square tubing, and it's an 1.5 inch size tube. I just need 120-foot length to be able to make this whole project, and I should be able to do it without a whole lot of bracing. So the first thing that I need to do is create a perimeter about 1/2 inch in from the outside edge of the wood, and so that means a whole bunch of miter cuts here to fit it all in place. The Siegmund table is going to be a big time saver here, but you could build this just using a regular speed square and tacking everything and bumping it around till it's square. I've done plenty that way as well. Now if everything is sitting parallel, I'll just check corner to corner to make sure it's square. That should be good enough for what I'm doing here. It's important to put some tacks on the inside and the outside, and don't go overboard with the size of tack when you're dealing with this thin-walled tubing. Notice I'm welding from the inside to the outside, and this will tend to pull things open because when you weld the inner fillet weld, it'll pull it closed, and it usually works out about right, kind of canceling out that residual stress, though with everything clamped down, it's not as big of a deal. Now notice I welded one side, and then I'm going to clamp it down and weld the other butt joint there on the other side. Because once those two are locked in place, the fillet weld won't pull it a whole lot, and it'll remain pretty square without being clamped down and constrained. While I ground the other side completely flush to sit against the tabletop, on this side I'll just grind down the inside and outside so they can sit inside the tubing that'll act as legs. Because of the size of tubing I'm using, I'm not going to use any bracing, I'll just put it directly on, and I'm using these squares to hold it in place while I tack it. Now, if I had really tight dimensional requirements, or if I were welding on thicker material, I would clamp everything and constrain it while I welded it out. But from my experience with this thinner material, as long as you don't get overboard with your welds, it usually stays pretty straight, so it should be okay as long as I get some good tack welds on there. At this point, it's just a matter of welding everything out. I can start off with these outside groove welds, and that will hold everything in place so it doesn't warp as much when I weld those inner fillets, and it should sit straight enough for what I need to do. On the outside corner on this thin tubing, a vertical down weld is going to work pretty well for me. I'm lining up the mag drill to be able to put the holes through to secure the top. It would be easier to just use a hand drill, except it's kind of hard for me to keep that straight vertical and get the upper hole lined up with the bottom one. And since I have a mag drill here, might as well use it. Well, the Amazon van showed up just in time with these adjustable feet that I ordered yesterday to be able to put on the bottom and level everything out. In order to do this, I'm going to cap the bottom with some thicker material that I had in place. It's already 1.5 inches wide, and I'll drill and tap some holes to thread these feet into and make it adjustable. I just need to cut them to be squares, and then I can drill some holes through the center. I could do this with a variety of tools, but the milling machine makes it a little easier to measure everything out in the center and get a repeatable result. I could just tap these on the mill, but I didn't want to change the tap and the drill out over and over again to get all of them lined up just right, so I'm going to hand tap them and use this little guide. This is super handy to keep everything straight, and it worked out just fine. I'm thinking by the time I'm 50, I'll probably remember to put my work clamp on, but I'm not there yet. Anyway, with that in place, it's just pretty simple to weld these right there in place. Now, since these are so much thicker than the tubing, I'm focusing most of my heat on the thicker material and letting it just roll onto the other. A quick black rattle can treatment to make everything look real nice will finish it off. Now I can attach the top just with some screws, a little bit of pre-drill makes them go in nicely without splitting anything. The leveling feet threaded in really nicely into those holes, and then I have that extra nut that I can use as a jam nut to keep everything locked in place once I get it sitting nice and level. And it fits just right in the spot that I want it without taking up too much space. I'm able to just set my belt grinder there. It hasn't walked around much on me in all the time that I've used it. However, the portable bandsaw table, it does tend to move around, so I want some way to hold it in place, and I want it to also be quickly removable. So I'm not just going to put some screws through those holes. What I came up with are these little toggle clamps. I just bought them over at Harbor Freight, and I'll screw those down, try to arrange them such that they can hold the thing in place just like that. That'll make it easily removable so I can use it there or move it if I need more room around it for a particular project. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Thanks a ton for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that thumbs up or leaving me a comment. We'll see you next time.